So, welcome to the Spherity podcast season Product Passport Pioneers. My name is Susanne Guth-Orlowski and I'm Chief Innovation and Solutions Officer of Spherity. Today, we're speaking with Torsten Freund, Head of Project Management Battery Passport of the Global Battery Alliance. Very, very warm welcome, Torsten.
Thank you very much, Susanne, for having me here.
Sure. The text of the new battery regulation is now final. It mandates for the first time a digital product passport, here concrete, a product passport for batteries, and it becomes an obligation for batteries over 2 kilowatt hours. And in this season, we're talking to the people that either have worked on the regulation, preparing it and giving input, or being very, very important in giving a personal impact on the success of the battery passport. And for that reason, dear Torsten, we invited you as the head of project management battery passport of the Global Battery Alliance. Torsten, before we go into the very technical details, tell us a little bit about yourself. What's your background and what did you do before joining the GBA?
Yeah, before joining GBA, I worked for more than a quarter of a century for a chemical company, BASF, and who still pays my salary. I'm a seconded to the Global Battery Alliance, where I now take the job of the product management for the battery passport. Before, I was working in many fields in chemical research, product development, business development, and very recently building up a new unit which has been focusing on developing the benchmarking and strategy for chemical production for the future. And from that job, the opportunity came, just flying by, to take over such a responsibility in an area which is very close to my personal heart, in sustainability and in the battery arena.
Yeah, it's a very, very responsible job, as you said. I'm happy that you took it because I see how you're engaged every day. Then tell us a little bit more about the GBA. When was the Global Battery Alliance founded? Why was it founded? Who are the most important members? Give us a short introduction, please.
Yeah, so this initiative of the Global Battery Alliance has been started as a project under the auspices of the World Economic Forum, somewhere in 2017 in Davos, where decision makers and thought leaders came together thinking, if the battery industry, driven by climate protection, runs up so fast, we need to take care that we achieve our objectives of protecting climate, and B, do this in a responsible manner, being very well aware of that there are many issues to be solved along the supply chain in the upstream, but also regarding circularity. This has been supported by studies performed by major consultancies, and it has taken shape over the time that in 2020, we have been starting the action partnerships. One action partnership is focusing on the responsible supply of cobalt, and the other action partnership is developing the battery passport as a key tool to provide transparency of the supply chains, to enable a comparison or benchmarking between the practices of individual players, and especially the tracking of progress over time, that we are really aware, can we achieve our objectives of building a sustainable and responsible value chain? Because only if you have the transparency, you see whether the measures you're taking are effective and leading into the right direction.
Yeah, you can't manage what you can't measure, right?
Absolutely.
And tell us a little bit about the members. Who are the members of the Global Battery Alliance?
So we have in the Global Battery Alliance a pre-competitive space of many, many stakeholders. I would categorize them into different segments. The first is, of course, industry, who is playing along the value chain. If a battery is made, this is not just a very simple process. It has a long value chain in the back. So you go back from the battery into the individual components. The individual components are made of materials, and those materials are gathered from Mother Nature. So mining, refining, component production are all parts of GBA, and the respective industry players are part of that. But then looking into the battery that goes into the car industry, major car companies, OEMs, or original equipment manufacturers, are part of the Global Battery Alliance as well. And that's not enough, because we're handling very scarce and precious materials in batteries, and they need to be protected, that they don't end up in dispersed dump yards, rather than are carefully collected and recycled, that we are protecting by the recycling the precious natural resources, which will not be so much explored if we take the materials just in a closed loop. And those recyclers are on board as well. So in a nutshell, in the industry space, we're covering the whole range of the value chain. However, additionally, the second segment is quite important. Those representatives of civil society who are representing the interests in the space of protecting environment are with us as well, who are protecting the interests of social aspects. So institutions, associations who are working to eliminate child labor, for example, are closely related to the Battery Alliance. And in the third segment, we have government representation who are supporting Global Battery Alliance with their perspective, how to really manage the implementation from the legal perspective, and supporting with their work the right mechanisms, how to incentivize using the battery passport and the intended outcomes, together with regulatory efforts. And the fourth segment is those ones who will bring a battery passport on the road, that are IT companies who have the technology and knowledge in place how to manage the necessary data along the value chain and make the battery passport really a demonstrable object, which can connect the real world, the physical world, with the digital world, and make the most benefit out of what comes with the data to make decisions and to drive change.
Super. I mean, this sounds really complete, especially with regards to what should come out of the product passport for batteries, or the battery passport, because we need all those actors that you just mentioned to actually fill the data that should be in the product passport, the content of the DPP, because this content has been regulated now by the new EU regulation. And what are the most important, what's the most important information that you target there from the DPP? What should be in there, and who can address what?
There are many questions in one, so
Sorry.
let me elaborate a little bit around that. The digital passports must not become an instance by itself. We need to understand. We need to think carefully about what do we want to achieve with a passport, and which impact it should have in the end. I really have to reiterate, we are taking the course of developing a sustainable and responsible value chain in a circular economy. So information supporting this objective must be in the battery passport. So starting with the upstream. So we need to collect data, for example, on greenhouse gas emissions along the value chain, from the very first beginning, when we start harvesting the first materials out of the ground, through all these material processing processes, through the manufacturing of the piece goods going into a battery. And not only the greenhouse gas footprint, but also social indicators will play a role. So first and foremost, one of the major objectives is to eliminate child labor. And really has to emphasize, elimination means much more than just saying child labor is absent. So we need to design the reporting according to providing incentives to those who honestly engage in eliminating the risks, rather than just showing to be compliant with the regulations.
What do you think, what can be done there better than we do today? What are the means? I mean, do we work with certifications here, or what is the plan?
So the certifications will certainly play a role. So if we start talking about data, the data need to be connected in the real world. And we must avoid that someone is cheating. Therefore, the audit processes, third-party verification, will play a crucial role if a company or an actor in the value chain provides a certain set of data. That's one mechanism which we have to establish to confirm the authenticity of the data. And in the second piece, the reporting and exchange of data throughout the technical world needs to be designed in a way that this is done in an immutable manner, that we can trust the transport of data and make the right connections. I'm speaking here about very relaxed about data. We need to really speak about what do we want to achieve. And it's not only to look at greenhouse gas compliance or child labor compliance. In our early days, we have identified about 30 issues, which we need to develop in a measurable manner. Either we have quantitative technical data. Our guinea pig to develop these means is greenhouse gas emission, or we have qualitative issues where our guinea pig is the reporting on child labor. However, in the long run, we need to be much more comprehensive with issues like water management, like environmental pollution, like the use of land, respecting biodiversity. Or in the social arena, it's not only child labor, we are talking about forced labor, we are talking about occupational safety and health, or the rights of indigenous people. And all those aspects will be discussed in the multi-stakeholder platform of Global Battery Alliance to find a common agreement on the metrics, how to assess the individual issues. But this will be, let's say, a further phase of the project. We're starting small, we're starting concrete, and we want to build the first prototypes during the year. And that's challenge enough in itself to really bring something concrete on the table, what you can grasp, what you can understand, where you can demonstrate the additional value of material passports.
And what do you think can come out of these first prototypes that you are planning to build this year? Is this industry coming together to create standards or a joint platform, or what is it? What are you targeting actually? What's your goal there?
So the objective is that we can show on an electronic data exchange system, however this may be structured, there are various options out there, that reports a battery passport at the level of a battery which is going into a car. At that level, we need to show how the data are collected along the value chain. And the two guinea pigs, which I have to repeat over and over again, are reporting greenhouse gas compliance and are reporting on child labor compliance. So how these data are transported through the value chain, what are the data standards we have to develop. That will be part of these prototypes. And here we cannot overemphasize the importance of interoperability. If you have those players along the value chain, if we need to make sure that if they are reporting a certain number, that number is equal for everyone. So imagine you want to buy shoes of size 9 that would fit my feet very well if I'm in the UK. But if I go to a German shoe shop and say I want to have a size 9, that maybe serves a toddler.
Absolutely.
Therefore, to agree on the same dimensions and how to measure things is of critical importance.
Yeah, thank you for the shoe example. Of course, I fully understand what you mean.
Yeah.
And of course, I mean, as a technical person, a technical company, we also want to achieve that this is going to be successful. And Spherity, as you know, brings the more decentralized approach in this, and also tries to find or tries to show how this maybe can be valuable. Do you think a decentralized approach can help with regards to privacy or no central service, flexibility, the things that we're argumenting and trying to bring in? What's your view on this?
I'm not such deep in that matter that I have already an opinion. I would imagine that the examples we've seen until today have very many promises in there, and the decentralized approach can be certainly one of potential solutions. I'm asking myself whether a single approach for data exchange will be the ultimate situation. So if I think, let's say 10, 15, 20 years ahead, will a decentralized approach, will be a database approach, will be an approach where you take data from one to the next instance, to the next, and accumulate those. I don't know which one would be the winning stage. Or we have an ecosystem which comprises all of these elements. And therefore, the question of interoperability is of critical importance. The critical interoperability of the content, that the data taxonomy and ontology is interoperable between those different systems, and the interfaces between individual components of the system allows to exchange data in a technical format.
Yeah. And from our side, of course, the verifiability of information in the product passport to make sure that there's no fake news in the battery passport, right?
Absolutely. That's then the requirement coming on top.
Yes.
The accuracy, the authenticity, and that this can be confirmed by individual objective observers. So the auditable scheme will be quite important to be included in that discussion.
Yeah. Now, the Global Battery Alliance is not the only initiative that is really putting a lot of effort in the battery passport. There are also other initiatives looking into this. How is the Global Battery Alliance actually related to those initiatives?
If you look at the world around batteries, this is really such a huge topic, which is of so much interest at the moment. I would say the different initiatives mushroom like after a summer rain. So the Global Battery Alliance has a little different approach. So we are talking very much about the impact we want to create, and have a strong focus on the content, how to report data, how to gather data. Therefore, we mostly rely on the existing standards and try to make a comparison between the standards that you can, let's say, report clearly apples with apples and oranges with oranges by adjusting the existing standards and make them comparable. That's the one approach where we are strongly focusing on. The second piece of our focus is, in the end, once battery passports are available, we want to create an interface where we can read out information out of battery passports to develop benchmarks and to understand the state of affairs and the progress towards a sustainable and responsible value chain. And sustainability and responsibility will be defined in numerous aspects where we have concrete key performance indicators which we can measure and therefore we can manage. There are other initiatives which are focusing much stronger on the technical side. How to create data standards, access rules, or the appropriate data governance of who sees what. Other initiatives are looking into more the conceptual work. So how can the overall ecosystem look like?
Yes, there you were referring to the overall call of the European Commission about the digital product passport. Are you referring to this one?
This one will certainly bring out one initiative which is winning the call, which is going more into the conceptual work. Yeah. And here we are starting to discuss about not only the battery passport, but also about material passports in general. Yeah. So this call is asking for passports in 3 different value chains. Batteries is one of them, which is a set parameter, but by including the 2 others, we are coming immediately into the situation that the standards to be developed, that the data exchange has to be agnostic no matter where products go. And if you look at these examples, aluminum, for example, is part of a battery, but also goes into automotive production, goes into construction, goes into your household foils,
absolutely,
and many other things. So once we develop metrics for this one material, aluminum, that has to be the same metrics being used throughout other value chains, and therefore the interoperability cannot be overemphasized as an important criterion.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for bringing this up. I mean, also the companies that produce aluminum, for example, they shouldn't have to serve 100 different systems or 100 different ecosystems differently. So my vision would be that they have a chance to declarate their material once in a way that is understood by all these different value chains.
Absolutely. And that is clearly the value proposition to industry of a battery passport. So if there is a metrics for a company which is generally accepted, there is one audit, one reporting, one interface. If I look back into my days as a product manager, how often came customers and wanted to have a certain audit or wanted to have a certain confirmation of material properties, and that took a lot of effort and time. Especially if you had to fulfill audit requirements, your team was blocked for days to prepare that. With a battery passport in a standardized way, where we have standardized information which is fulfilling the criteria of the receiving party good enough, you do this once and share with hundreds of your downstream customers or other partners. That is an efficiency gain, which is of huge benefit on the cost side, on the transparency side, on the understanding side, and can liberate resources which can be used on improving the state of affairs rather than on the reporting.
Yeah, and I think what I also hear from the industry is that regulations are rather becoming more than less. So reporting requirements rather become more than less. So finding a solution that helps everyone reporting in a standardized technical way, which is verifiable, where you can get a compliance statement on the press of a button, that's what I'm dreaming of. You probably too, and many others as well.
Okay. Absolutely. I think we share that dream. Yes. But until we are there, that will take another couple of years.
See, thank you very much for the line, because I wanted to, as a next question, I wanted to ask you, where do you see the battery passports in 5 years, or maybe it's better to target the 2026 when they become an obligation for batteries, and then in 10 years, how do you think will this develop? How fast will this go? Where will we be in 4 and in 10 years?
Yeah, so the first milestone is set when it becomes mandatory, at least in the European Union. And until then, we will have to work very hard to develop the first prototypes or the first simple version, just fulfilling the core needs of the legislation. With that first phase, we then can relax a bit and think about other use cases where the core of a battery or a material passport can be beneficial, that can be used for many other things, commercial applications, as well as reporting requirements. Those ideas are numerous. However, that system needs to come up and running with the most simplest thing.
Yeah.
So friend of ours just compared it. Before you create and draw the car on a desk and then are failing to produce a car in the end, better start with a line of skaters, then you go to the kickboard, then you go to the bike, then you go to the motorcycle, and then you go to the car. So building this up in an evolutionary manner, starting small, learning by doing, will be the pathway to go in such a complex ecosystem we are creating. And the full benefit of a product passport will only come if you do everything at the same time. So you're changing your processes of working. You're changing the reporting part of it. You're changing entire value chains. And if you really think about all the inventions of the past decade, enable so many more completely different ecosystems, that will be really the challenge, because it's not a single measure which will take you to the solution. You have to go into very many fields, and therefore society, governments, industry must work together to have really the critical mass of breaking the ice to the next level.
Maybe also to mention it here, what you just said, so complying to the regulation is one thing, but also after that, or maybe at the same time, companies can look at the commercial benefits that such a product passport would bring to them. They can make much better decisions on what they purchase. They can maybe design products better on the additional information that they get. So do you have 1 or 2 more arguments why it's not just a regular compliance that the passport brings? Does it also have benefits?
Well, this is still far in speculation, but you can imagine in the future. So I come from chemical industry and process industry. So we are talking a lot about optimizing the performance of materials. If you have data from the use phase and can link them back to the materials which are in that product, you can have real data from the use, relate them to the properties of your product and how you made the product. That will be an enormous benefit for developing new materials, to see where the one material performs better than the other, to tailor materials to the use case. And that will only be possible if we really manage to connect the data back and forth in the value chain.
Yeah.
At that point, and there we need to speak really about the data governance. Who is allowed to see what? How can we manage the access rights that only those who are entitled to exchange data really get the access, while providing confidentiality to those critical business information which must not be shared.
Yeah, absolutely. Where, of course, the decentralized approach, we think, has has an advantage, because technology or information would be stored decentrally and not everyone could access the data. But it also brings me to the point, what do you think are the biggest hurdles? I mean, especially in the industry or in this activity now, where of course a lot of competitors actually have to work together to find common standards. What's the biggest hurdle for the battery passport? What do you think?
I think the management of expectations would be one key thing. So the task of developing the battery passport, content-wise, data exchange-wise, process-wise, are quite complex and really tedious. If you believe that you have just to sit down for an afternoon and program such a thing, you will end up nowhere and come up with a premature solution which is not good enough. The challenge will be really to balance the, let's say, walking fast enough, but not too fast to stumble in that ecosystem, while being very transparent what's possible and what's not. This is more or less a communication and expectation management topic. So this will not be an endeavor in a year. So the timeline 2026 is quite challenging. It's very challenging. Nonetheless, we take the challenge and work on it. The second biggest risk I see is the interoperability. You mentioned, we just talked about the various initiatives earlier, and many of these initiatives have the mission to create a standard. But if you have many initiatives with many standards, you don't have a standard. That would be the key problem, to bring them all together. At least that they speak with each other and come to common solutions, interchangeable, interoperable solutions at the critical points.
And are you speaking to those initiatives already today, or to people you know from those initiatives?
Absolutely. So that is one of the key benefits of Global Battery Alliance. So we are pre-competitive and multi-stakeholder oriented. So therefore, this is a platform where, or let's say, the safe harbor where all those initiatives can convene, bring their members in order to reach a interoperable goal. Nonetheless, let's say, the principles and the ethics behind that must be respected. So GBA has the 10 principles to foster a sustainable, responsible, and circular value chain, thereby respecting human and social rights, as well as creating value for all participants. So especially the value aspect, that's very important. So running up with the battery industry will create a lot of jobs. But those jobs will replace other jobs in classical arenas.
Of course, yeah, how this is always the case, yeah.
New skill sets will be necessary, but still this provides income and livelihood to many people.
Which is actually a very, very nice point to come to an end, and almost a nice final statement, what you already mentioned. Do you have something that you want to share with our listeners, what your most important message would be to everyone who listens to this podcast today?
So the key message is, so this change is possible. We foresee the energy independence from fossils translating to electricity. We have the technologies in place. Batteries will certainly play a major role in that arena. Nonetheless, those issues are too big for a single person, for a single organization, for a single stakeholder segment to solve alone. We must commit to the targets of really sustaining human life, and by working together. And that is critically necessary to start it now together.
Perfect, Torsten. Thank you so much. We've come to an end of this interview. Thank you for sharing all those insights with our listeners. And thank you for helping to make this world a little bit greener.
Thank you very much for having me here, Susanne. Always a pleasure speaking with you.
Bye, Torsten.
Bye.